right, it's 10:01, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to say hello and welcome you to the CyberSafe in the Gigabit City version 2.0. My name is Wes Hill. I'm the Dean of Business and Applied Technologies here at Wilson Community College. We thank you for taking time today to join us. We also welcome you to October, and for our purposes, the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We hope you come away from this event with a much better knowledge of how to prepare yourself to be cyber safe at home. In a normal year, we'd all be sitting in the Eagle Center on campus doing this presentation, but as safety prevails, we're doing this virtually this year. We hope that version 3.0 will be in person and back on our campus next October. So Wilson Community College has had a long-standing relationship with the City of Wilson, Greenlight, and the Gig East Exchange. This extends to our information technology certificate and degree programs, where members of their staff serve on our advisory boards, assist with curricular program changes, and with internships and job opportunities for our students. We are especially grateful to Gene Scott and Will Aycock and their teams for their continued support and for being a co-sponsor of this program. I'd like to introduce Brittany Smith, who wears many hats within the City of Wilson, but official title is Customer Support Manager for Greenlight and Gig East Exchange. She's going to say a few words about the partnership and the Gig East Exchange. Brittany?
Thanks, Wes. And of course, we're always excited to support events such as this. This is definitely right in our realm of things that we're doing with Greenlight and with Gig East. For those who are not very familiar with Gig East, it's been, we've had our meetups, and then we also have the summit that we've done every year, of course. This past year has thrown things into a little bit of a whirlwind, as it's done for, I believe, everyone. So we had our summit scheduled in the spring, and we've actually rescheduled it to this year or this fall. So be looking forward to that. We'll be sending out all kinds of notifications, letting everyone know. It's going to be virtual, of course. And then for the exchange, that was actually a vision that was created about 2 years ago, of course, before COVID. So we were prepared for that to open this summer. And unfortunately, we've had some setbacks due to COVID, of course, which again, I think everyone is familiar with that. So I don't think we're the only ones that are going through some issues, but we're really excited because we're actually getting in the short rows now. So for anyone who's not aware, the exchange, the 127 Goldsboro Street, so it's downtown, close to the Whirligig Park. It's an innovation hub. So we are there to support entrepreneurs, startups. The thought in it, of course, is co-working, and we still want to do that. We know right now social distancing is huge, but we are taking all precautions so that everyone will be able to come into the space and be able to utilize it as we want you to, but also be able to be safe, doing all kinds of cleaning measures. But we're really excited to go ahead and launch this. We're actually already taking members. So if you're interested, please check out the website, gigeast.com. You can see all of the membership levels that we have there. I mean, we even have a virtual membership. So for anyone who is looking to have an address for your business for mail, or if you're looking for a business phone number and you want that forwarded to your cell phone so you have another number to give out to people, please reach out, go and check out all the amenities that we have. We, of course, have dedicated desk space, and we also have suites that are available. So it's going to be a very exciting time at the exchange. We also have Lorema Coffee Shop from right now that's going to be coming in, and that's not even just available to members. That's going to be available to everyone to come in, get a cup of coffee, hang out, you know, check out the space, and then hopefully you will want to be a member as well. We have discounts for Greenlight members too, so please inquire on that. A contact form out there on the website. You can also request a tour. Of course, we'll put on our mask to go through the space, but you can check it out and see what all it's going to be doing for Wilson. And again, we're happy to partnership with you guys, and we're ready to have some events for all of you in there just as soon as we open.
Very good. Brittany, thank you very much to you and to City of Wilson, Greenlight, and Gig East Exchange for all your support. We really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing the inside of that building. I know it's been a It's been a long time, so look forward to it.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Kelly Caudle, our keynote speaker, and our panelists, Kevin Gross, Stephen Reeves, and Fred White, for taking their time to share their expertise today. A little stat for you. According to Cybersecurity Adventures, a leading researcher of cybersecurity statistics, there are currently 31 billion, yes, billion, connected IoT or Internet of Things devices in the world. That is expected to grow to about 75 billion by 2025. Cyber criminals recognize this growth as an opportunity to steal important information from users who don't properly protect themselves. That is why this program is so important and such an important discussion. We hope this gives you an opportunity to learn more to how to protect yourself from a cyber attack. This year's keynote speaker is Kelly Caudle. Kelly has worked at Stanley Community College in the Cisco Networking Academy program as an instructor and contact for the past 20 plus years. He holds a Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts in English from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, as well as numerous networking and information security certifications. His current role at Stanley Community College is lead contact for the Cisco Networking Academy Support Center and instructor training center. He's also the lead instructor for their training center, teaching courses on CCNA, cyber ops associates, and various other technologies such as virtualization. Unfortunately, Kelly had a last-minute medical appointment come up, but very generously recorded his presentation for us. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation today on the Internet of Things in Gigabit City version 2.0. It's my pleasure today to be with you. My name is Kelly Caudle. I'm the program head for Cisco Academy Support Center Instructor Training Center at Stanley Community College. And it's my great pleasure to be here to be able to talk to you about what the Internet of Things is and how it's affecting our daily lives. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn my video off because looking at me is not as important as looking at what's on the slides. So I'm going to stop my video during the presentation, then I'll come back at the end of the presentation and discuss a little bit with you about it. So to begin with, what is, as we talk about the Internet of Things, what is the Internet of Things and what is IoT? IoT is the explosion of these network connected devices that we've had come on the scene in the recent years. In 2018, there were 7 billion IoT devices. 2019, it reached 26.66 billion devices. Every second, 127 new IoT devices are connected to the web. Now, that seems extremely hard to believe, but what you have to think about is that every single home video camera, every single Fitbit, every single phone, every single sensor that is placed into a vineyard or placed into a pipeline to measure pressure in that pipeline, all of those are IoT devices. So every one of those little devices make up one of those 127 new devices connected to the web every second. They believe, and it has been pretty much said, that by this year, 31 billion IoT devices will be attached to the internet. Now think about that, 31 billion. And then by 2025, 75 billion will be connected to the internet. I got these from the Security Today, an article on there, and there's the link to figure out how to get to it. But the big thing here is we've seen in the past 5 to 10 years an explosion of the number of devices being connected to the internet. Now these devices, in fact, that right now there are more people connected and many people connected 24 hours a day to the internet. And that's obviously true because of our phones. Each consumer will have 6.58 smart devices by 2020, which I have to say that's probably low. And I'll show you why in a minute when I give you an inventory of my personal home network. All of this is possible because we're networking everything. Now, the good news is we are networking everything, which means we have access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to a huge number of resources. The bad news is those same resources can be hacked and used for nefarious purposes. So in our homes, our smart homes, we have smart sensors. We have these sensors, and I'll mention them in a minute, but the things such as Nest thermostats, which I've got one right here on my phone that if I get hot, I can just turn the temperature up or down. But these sensors that are in our homes provide us with functionality we had never dreamed of before. In many ways, we're into the world of science fiction now because we can talk to our homes. We can allow the home to say, hey, Google, turn on Kelly's lamp, and it will turn on my lamp. The big thing that we have, though, is as we attach these devices, sometimes these devices, these smart home devices, were built with ease of use instead of security as their primary function. So let's think about it. In our homes today, what do we have in terms of connected devices? Of course, we have our legacy desktop PCs, which I call those legacy, but we do have desktop PCs. We have our laptops, including especially now during the COVID-19 crisis, kids at home with laptops, kids at home with Chromebooks. We have everyone's phone connected to our network. We have tablets, security cameras. In my case, I use what is called a Blink security camera from Amazon. Connected doorbells such as Ring. A lot of people don't realize it, but even today our DVRs are connected so that we can have Netflix play through our DVRs. Our Xboxes, Nintendo Switches, and PlayStations aren't just for gaming anymore. They're also media consoles that allow us to stream Amazon Prime, allow us to do Netflix, Hulu, all of those. Security systems like SimpliSafe. Now what I did is just a quick inventory on my home network to see how many devices I have. Right now, there's 28 devices on my home network. Now, this is if my nephew isn't visiting. I make that joke because he typically brings a tablet with him, possibly a laptop and a phone. So those numbers can go up. He sometimes brings us a Nintendo Switch also. So those numbers can go up. But think about it. I'm just an individual with a typical size home, and I have 28 devices on my network. That's pretty impressive considering, 10 years ago, one computer in a home, even 15 years ago, 1 or 2 computers in a home would have been something that would have been hard to believe. So in my home, I have Nest thermostats, Philips Hue lights, Blink cameras. There are baby monitors out there. All of these devices, SimpliSafe security systems, these all are created by Internet of Things devices. Some of these devices, for instance, my Blink cameras, those are small cameras that are connected wirelessly. They run on AA batteries. So they're not extremely powerful devices, and that actually gives us some issues in terms of security because it's harder to run encryption on them because they're not extremely powerful devices. But they do provide an amazing world of usefulness. For instance, I have a spinal cord injury. Sometimes it's hard for me to get up and down from a seat or to move around the house. I can say, Google, turn on X lamps or turn on these lights. And because of the home integration, Google will turn on those lights in my house. I have a nephew who has Duchenne muscular dystrophy and is confined to a wheelchair. He's able to turn on individual lights in his house using his voice. So these Internet of Things devices have made our lives extraordinarily easier and also in many ways enriched it because we can walk through the house and say, hey, turn on this music or stream this music, check the weather. It also allows us to do things like protect our house from these destructive terrorist squirrels. Take a peek here. This is a funny one. He comes up, knocks down my camera. And I don't know what it is about the Blink cameras, but for some reason they tend to attract animals. I think they must be giving off some type of radio wave that they're sensing. But this is one of the first times that I actually had a squirrel come up and flip my camera down on its face so I couldn't videotape him anymore. So I thought that was pretty humorous. Now, some of the bad things. Here's a couple items that have happened. For instance, hackers can intrude in our homes with these same cameras that we use to protect our home. The Blink cameras allow you to set it up to where if we're away from the house and someone walks by a camera, it will automatically take a clip and upload that clip to the internet. So even if someone steals the camera, it doesn't matter, the clip's on the internet. However, at the same time, if those devices are not secured, people can look at those cameras and see what's going on inside the house. Likewise, those same Philips Hue bulbs that I use to be able to turn them on and off with my voice using Google Home, those bulbs have been hacked to allow someone to control those bulbs remotely. Alexa and Google Home, they're listening and recording your devices. That's what I've got here. So Google is absolutely listening to your conversations. Down on the bottom right, why Amazon Alexa is always listening to your conversations. Hacking thermostats from anywhere in the world to control temperatures in homes and buildings. A DDoS attack in Finland, which by the way, that's a distributed denial of service attack, where you take a large number of computers or devices and attack other devices with them. So for instance, honestly, IoT devices have become a favorite for distributed denial of service, because I can take over hundreds of thousands of small security cameras and then have those cameras send information to the thermostat at this finished property so that people can't turn on their heat. It actually left a property for without heat for a month during winter. So think about how bad that would be. And then even ridiculous things such as a fish tank sensor in a casino, which was keeping up with salinity and heat temperature in the fish tank, was compromised, and then that was actually used to then hack into the casino's computers and steal data. So these IoT devices are amazing because they give us such flexibility, but at the same time, they do open us up to being hacked. Now, there's a couple ways we can handle this. One is we could just say, okay, I'm never going to use these IoT devices. I don't think that's a realistic way to go because honestly, they are very enriching to our lives. It's so much easier to be able to turn on lights by just voicing that, or to have music stream in your house by saying it. I do think with the number of devices we have, it's making it harder to secure the non-traditional location of some of these devices. In other words, they're inside of our homes, they're listening to us. And on some of them, the lack of upgradability. For instance, like the Blink cameras. The Blink cameras are very small, low powered. It's hard to do much to upgrade those. So they actually connect back to a control hub, and most of the intelligence is in that control hub instead of on the actual camera. So you can update the control hub and provide security through that hub instead of each individual camera. However, there are a couple things going on. Sometimes when we allow our devices to send data to the good guys, they actually are looking to try to find ways to better secure these devices. So while many times I will say do not participate in the anonymous collection of data, there are times it does help that it allows the companies to see what's going on and how their devices are being used. So there are good guys out there who want our data. There are a lot of bad guys too, and gals. And those are the people who want to get our personal identifiable information and use it for crimes or for identity theft or for just to make mischief, all right? So what can you do? Well, the big thing is don't be afraid of every device, okay? Don't fall for the skies falling horror stories that you hear out there. Yes, there are horror stories out there. But if you research your IoT devices before you buy them and you buy from reputable companies that are devoted to doing security updates and patches, that's a big thing. Now, if you buy them off a Chinese website from Amazon and you don't know where they've come from, that could be a problem. But research where your IoT devices are coming from before you buy them and make sure it is a reputable dealer or reputable company. Make sure you keep your IoT firmware updated. So like my Blink cameras, it's set to automatically update. My Philips Hue lights, same thing with my Nest thermostats. In fact, I looked today after looking at some new vulnerability on Hue lights to make sure my Hue lights were up to date, and they were. So make sure you're updating those devices in the firmware. Make absolutely sure you're using encryption on your home wireless network. If you don't know, get someone in to check your home network to make sure you're using WPA2 or WPA3. So don't use the same username and password on the applications that control your home IoT devices. So if you've got a Philips Hue, you've got a Nest, you've got Blink cameras, don't use the same username and password across all three of those vendors. Also, I avoid linking accounts across multiple vendors. So for instance, some of these IoT devices will say if you have an Amazon account, or not an Amazon, but a Facebook account, you can use that to log in, or you can link all these accounts. Now, sometimes you have to link accounts. For instance, in order for Google Home to be able to turn on and off my Hue lights, I have to link those accounts so that the Google voice commands can be passed on to the Hue control box. But as much as possible, don't link across multiple vendors. Use two-factor authentication wherever possible. Now, what does this mean? Now, typically, we're accustomed to a username and a password. But if two-factor authentication is enabled, you've got to have something else. Many times, that could be not only do you have to have the username and password when you go to log in, that device will then send you a text to a phone number that you put in that'll give you a code. And so you don't need just the username and password to authenticate, but you need the username and password being one factor, and then you need that one-time passcode being the second factor. And then last but not least, folks, just use common sense when approaching security. If something seems too good to be true, don't trust it. err on the side of being cautious and assuming that something is not on the up and up. And that will usually help you as you try to determine what to do with your IoT devices. So folks, I hope this has been useful. I know it's been very short. I apologize for not being here in person for this event. I had to have some medical issues taken care of today. But I hope you'll actually look at this and think about IoT devices or the Internet of Things and see the great, great advances it's allowing us to have, the great opportunities there are there, and the fact that it can be used if you follow common sense security practices. Have a good day, and everyone enjoy the Q&A session that's coming up here in just a moment.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kendra Faulkner, and I'm an information technology instructor at Wilson Community College. So let's introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Kevin Gross. Kevin is a retired East Carolina University professor and a former downtown Wilson business owner. Currently, he is teaching online part-time while attending Wilson Community College. He will complete his associate in applied science and information technology, networking, and security this fall. Kevin and his wife have lived in Wilson for 20 years, and they have a son who's a senior at Fike High School. Our second panelist is Stephen Reeves. Stephen is the Chief Information Security Officer for the North Carolina Community College System Office, which represents our 58 community colleges that serve approximately 800,000 citizens. Stephen has over 21 years of IT experience. He joined the North Carolina Community College System in 2007 and has been in IT leadership roles since 2009. Currently, Stephen is working to establish a more efficient and robust system-wide information security program. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice from East Carolina University. He earned status as a Certified Government Chief Information Officer from the UNC School of Government, and he is also a Certified Information Systems Security Professional. Our third panelist is Fred White. Fred works with Greenlight Community Broadband as a network technician and has been with the company for approximately 3 years. Originally hired on as a technical service representative, where in this position, Greenlight customers would reach out when having technical difficulties with their service. Fred has since moved over to the engineering team, where he works with others to maintain, improve, and troubleshoot any issues within the city's network or fiber infrastructure. Fred had years of customer-facing technical support before starting his career with Greenlight, which has given him a solid background for serving his community. We will now hear from our panelists about securing Internet of Things devices to expand on some of the things that our keynote speaker just touched on. So question one, let's start with the basics. Panelists, expand on what Kelly mentioned earlier about default usernames and passwords. We'll begin with Kevin.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm actually, a lot of this is kind of new to me. I don't have the background and experience of the other panelists. My retired ECU professor status is from a completely different field, but about 3 years ago, I decided that I wanted to take my consumer interest in technology to another level. So I started attending classes, and I'm in the networking and cybersecurity program, and I'll be finishing up this fall. So a lot of this is, what I've been learning over the last 3 years and applying that to my own home network. When we talk about the usernames and passwords, a lot of our devices that we get come with default ones in there. And the problem with that is that hackers know what those are. I mean, if you yourself, and I've done this, in the past where, my own, I couldn't get into my router, forgot my own password and had to do a reset on it or something, or, and so I got online and I searched, oh, there's the default, and I was able to get into it. And I was like, oh, I probably should change that myself. So it's really important that, you go in and you change it, especially at the router. I mean, the router is really your front door, to what we're, to your network. That's where a lot of your things are connecting to. So changing those, You know, and the idea here is that we, you're trying to make yourself less vulnerable. You know, you're trying to reduce your risk. And so, you know, you want to make sure that, you know, especially like I said, with your router or your devices, if they've, you know, when a hacker is trying to get in, they're looking for systems that are using those default usernames and passwords. And so, you know, if they get into your system and it's not there, then they're moving on to the next one. And so, and then there's, you know, different things that you can do, strategies that you can use. Now, you know, in one, and I'll finish with this because I want to give, I don't want to take all of the tips here and away from the other guys here. You know, is to use a passphrase, especially again, and I'm focusing on the router, but you know, at that level, you know, a passphrase as opposed to just a word, and that phrase could be something, you know, maybe a line from a poem or your favorite song. But what you do in there maybe is you insert symbols and replace those symbols. So like A's, you might use the @ or S's, the dollar signs. So things that, you know, that would make it, you know, easier for you to remember, but harder to hack. And one of the things you can do, I'm sorry, I know I said I would end, but I'm not going to end, is you can actually get online and test your passwords. There are different things, you know, things that you can go into. And I remember the first class I took with Kendra, we did that. And I went in and I tested some of my passwords. I was like, ooh, that's not really very strong, you know? And so you can, you know, go in and actually test passwords on some websites.
Stephen?
So good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. So I think Kelly and Wes did a great job of covering down on passwords and some of the risks associated with the default passwords. I'll step on Wes's coattails here and tell you, you know, if you wanted to play along, you could go to a website called Have I Been Pwned? PWNED, and you can actually type, this is a secure website, you can type your password in there and it will tell you if that password is part of a known database of passwords. So what we're really advocating for is, you know, when you change the default password, what we're trying to say is do something that's more secure than the device comes with. You can see very easily when you look at, I think there's something to the tune of over 10 million, maybe a billion known passwords out there. And so the bad actors, they can use these databases to attempt to use, you know, they're lazy. They want to get into things quickly. So they're going to use known passwords. The other thing I would add in this is it's not just passwords in some extents. Many times it's the settings on the router or the device that in question is making sure that you're going through and that you're touching all of the settings, not just those default passwords and accounts, to ensure that you're setting the device up as securely as possible. The good news is, and in more cases than not, you can simply Google your device name and secure settings. And I assure you, somebody is out there has probably done the legwork for you and creates the shortcut to get to success. And with that, I'll let Fred jump in.
Yeah, I think the guys covered that topic pretty well. I will say that I believe it's the manufacturers and the vendors' duty to give us the ability to configure our devices and our accounts. But it does fall on us as end users, as our responsibility to take the time to actually construct, like they were saying, strong passwords, and then not using the same one across the board to help, you know, mitigate, you know, any type of account breaches, and just to add in, you know, that type of layer of security that we can do.
Mr. Caudle also mentioned two-factor authentication. Can you all tell us a little bit more about that and how two-factor authentication can be extremely beneficial? And this time we'll start with Stephen.
Sure. So really, two-factor authentication, sometimes referred to as multi-factor authentication, is about validating you actually own the account. Most of you do online banking now, and just about all good banks are forcing their clients to use either multi-factor or two-factor authentication. So whether you recognize the terminology, you're probably doing it now. Really, I think what we would advocate for is recognizing that even your network's edge or any place that you can apply this technology, it's beneficial. The thing of it is generally speaking, like it was mentioned in the presentation, you're going to get a passcode, or it's going to use some sort of biometric scanner or some other technology to validate that you have something you know, which is your password, and something you have. And many times that's going to be your cell phone with an app or an email account that you have ownership of. But it's really just about maintaining control over it. So in the event that the bad actors get just the password or the account, without having that second device validation feature, they can't get any further.
Yeah, so like Stephen was saying, it's extremely beneficial as it requires a user to identify themselves in not just one way, but two. Not only are you going to have the knowledge factor, such as your shared password or PIN number, but you'll also have a possession factor. That could be security tokens like RSA keys, or you can, and you also have your inherence factor or biometric factor. That could be voice recognition, thumbprints, facial scans. All of those factors will allow you to add a layer of security to just help keep the bad guys out of your account.
Kevin, have you tried two-factor authentication?
Just as Stephen and Fred mentioned, with my, banking accounts and that sort of thing. And actually, I hope you don't mind, but I was actually going to, something came into my mind. So actually to ask a further question of the other two panelists, because aren't there also like special things you can plug into your computer, like a dongle or something that then, requires more two-factor authentication? So something you have that will help protect in another level?
Yeah, so like Kelly showed in his presentation, something you have can actually be your face, your image. So he talked about or mentioned facial recognition. So some devices like I forget what version of the iPhone and Android devices are now have facial recognition for unlocking. That is a security control so that if you lose your phone, nobody can just get access to it. In the same way, it could be a fingerprint scanner or a thumb drive. I'm sure there's other devices that would work in the same manner.
So we hear about how updates are so important and updating all of our devices. Tell us about updates and how they can apply to IoT devices. And we'll begin with Fred.
Updates are extremely important. Quite often they will include patches, critical patches for known vulnerabilities. They'll help with system stability. They'll even remove outdated features. When it comes to your Wi-Fi router, your mobile devices, all of those, I strongly encourage everyone to just take the time to either go on the internet and check your manufacturer and say, hey, is there an update available? Am I updated all the way? Or if they come up automatically, just take the time to get them installed.
Yes, well, I mean, and some of you maybe remember it was last year at one point where they had the problem with all the Netgear routers. And there was actually the FBI notification came in, and my router was included in that, now, and I, I'm pretty good about getting on, but, I get busy and I forget, and, and I think things are automated, but then I got on. So, I really, got on and had to do all my research and checked, and, come to find out that mine was fine, but I was really, really quite worried about that for a while. So, keeping up with those updates. Yeah. And even, my family who's watching this, I always have to remind them, when that little red circle comes up, on your little setting things for your phones, make sure you do that, because that's not just, this thing wasn't working right, but it's the security that's really, the key there. And that was one of the things I really learned in this program that I wasn't always aware of, is that, I was always thinking, oh, I'm going to get a new feature with this update. That'll be cool, but I'll wait a few days. But sometimes those updates, it's important that you do them as soon as you can, because, there's a vulnerability, and it's, as soon as they, those come out, that, people are trying to take advantage of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think understanding, first of all, kudos to everybody, because you're already trying to build awareness to what Internet of Things looks like. And so having recognition of what it is inside of your home is step one. I mean, I have a television downstairs that's pending a firmware upgrade. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But you don't think about in the context of what in your home needs to be touched as far as maintenance and patching. The other thing I would add to that is sometimes it's not just the software, it's not the firmware or the tools that you're touching those devices with. Sometimes it's literally the device. Technology is always rolling forward, and the industry is hypersensitive to security right now. You can't look at a news article without seeing some relationship to cybersecurity. Understand that the life cycle of devices actually gets shorter and shorter as technology ramps. And so it becomes a prospect of understanding, well, maybe it makes more sense to reinvest in a new technology versus trying to maintain an old one, so that you inherit all the benefits associated with that new one, which is generally going to be more secure, higher performance, more robust, everything that you would want out of it beyond just the base tool that it's giving you, whether it's a camera, a router, or what have you.
Exactly. And some of these devices, when they get outdated, they can't be updated. So you do lose that security. So when purchasing IoT devices for the home, when we're out shopping for these devices that we think we want or need, what should we be cautious of? We'll start with Kevin.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Stephen for giving me an excuse to go out and buy a bunch of new devices. And then, and so, you know, I can say, well, honey, you know, he said that this is outdated because it's
Black Friday's right around the corner.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But I think, and I think that Kelly, you know, our primary presenter, you know, he kind of really hit it. Was, you know, it's not a time to go off bargain hunting, you know, for some off-brand something that, you know, you can't learn anything about. And I'm always one, I mean, and if I think 6 months from now, I'm going to get something new, I'm starting to research it now, you know, and I don't know, I hope it's appropriate for me to say, you know, Consumer Reports is always a good place to go, you know, just reputable CNET, you know, there's lots of great online sources where you can look at reviews, and just really, you know, look at, you know, and then look at, you know, reviews of other customers. Because, you know, again, you're trying to strike a balance here between securing your home, but making it so you can use stuff. You know, you don't want to be so secure that you can't use it, right? We're trying, I mean, you know, you think about, you know, your own home, you know, you don't leave the door wide open, you know, that unsecure, but you don't brick it up every time you leave either. So, you know, so it's, yeah, it's kind of, you know, for me, it's just always about, you know, doing that research, you know, and talking to somebody. Whether it's a friend or somebody, you know, in the field, you know, maybe, you know, technician comes in to help you with a problem and, you know, that you're having with your internet, and you might just, you know, ask them. So.
How about you, Fred?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin hit the nail on the head there. Just, you want to find that balance of, you know, comfort and security. Doing your research to make sure that, you know, taking a look and saying, hey, this device is collecting what type of data. The personal data that it's connecting from me collecting from me, is it being shared with another group or a third party? If it is being shared, are they encrypting the data to make sure that they are, you know, taking into consideration my privacy and security? That's, I guess, all I have to add to that.
Let me circle back, if I may, real quick. So we haven't talked about it, but in the context of this, think about many of us wear a watch or some sort of device that is now monitoring our health biometrics. So we don't often think about that information as part of our data, the data that represents us. So this now technology is lending itself into pacemakers and other medical devices. So I think part of the conversation has to be recognizing where the device is. So, and where it originates from and what's involved with it. We don't have choices on all of these. If you're buying a consumer level device, yep, do all your research, consult your friends and family, your niece and nephew, they're going to have the game on that. But also be aware as you move through life, you're going to come into contact with other devices that you may not have that choice on, but you're going to want to ask those questions and say, where did this originate from? What's it going to do? What's it collecting? Things like that.
Maybe we could expand on this same question by what about settings for the devices, settings and apps? Those are some things that you should look into. What about, and any of the panelists could jump in, what are maybe some settings, concerns with apps, maybe through
So I'll jump in and see if this starts the conversation. So this is a little bit more complex because now it requires some knowledge of what the settings are and what they do. So it really turns into an investment in knowing what technology you're purchasing and putting in your home from the perspective of, do I know how to maintain and management? You know, earlier this summer, there's a protocol called UPnP, or it's a plug and play, and it's used by just about every device out there, your routers, your cameras, your Amazon Echoes, your Googles, all that good stuff. And it was a huge major security flaw. But the consumer base really didn't know about it until the media started saying, hey, there's an issue out here you should be aware of. Do recognize that the bad actors, they're getting this information in advance, and in many ways they're discovering it. So I don't know how to answer the question other than to say it's be informed, try to monitor. If you get into, pick your flavor of personal camera or home monitoring device, Nest, maybe subscribe to the Nest Twitter feed or something like that, so that you can maintain some situational awareness of what's going on, how the product's evolving, when they have software releases and things like that.
This sort of reminds me of my Ring doorbell at home. I'll have neighbors who ask me, how much is it? What can you do with it? How do you like it? So you do need to do your research, ask some people that have one of those items, get their feedback on it and their experiences. Kelly briefly mentioned encryption settings earlier in the keynote presentation. We'll start with Fred. What do we do with encryption settings on our home router?
Well, as Kelly was discussing, not all devices have the resources to actually encrypt your personal data. Believe it or not, your Android devices and your Apple devices, they don't come by default encrypted, but it is a simple settings that you can go through, and actually encrypt your personal data in case you lose or misplace the phone that's picked up by someone else. And as far as your router goes, you should definitely be using, some type of strong encryption, such as WPA2, WPA3. And what that does is it's going to encrypt the network traffic that's going between your router and your actual IoT devices. In the event that someone does get on your network, you don't want them to just be looking at plain data. Just go through that, little motion of adding that extra layer of security is good. I
don't know if this is if this kind of fits in with this question, but it just kind of got me thinking about the virtual private networks. But again, and I think that's reaching maybe beyond your network into others. But I think with a lot more people working from home, that there's going to be more and more, the hackers are going to, homes were yeah, they want to get your personal information potentially, if it was easy to get to, or use your system as a bot to attack others, as was mentioned. But now with more of us working from home, that becomes more of an issue. And I know, like, my wife works at a university, and she's required, depending on what she's accessing at the university, they have a VPN set up. But you can also get personal accounts, VPN, so that when you're out and about in the community, and so if a lot of you are always working from coffee shops and stuff like that, but maybe you don't have work for a company that provides that for you, getting the VPN. So that, I guess I was thinking, that level of the encryption from that perspective, and as well as the home, certainly.
That's good that you mentioned that, and I believe that unless your employer is providing it, as far as individuals, they can purchase VPN services to protect themselves when they're out and about with Wi-Fi. Let me circle back to Fred, because I understand that Greenlight customers can have the option for, I believe it's a router that has some additional security.
Yeah, we have a product that we have that is not just your typical wireless router. It offers it's a more secure router, and it also has a little user interface that you can just download on your phone. And you can take a look at, what devices you have on your network. You can see what's reaching out to what, which, I mean, if your knowledge is power. So if you're taking the time to look through that and you're aware of it, and you see something that's out of place or not right, you can take action on it.
So from an encryption thing, really we're talking about device encryption in some context. On the Windows devices, that would be BitLocker. I don't know what it is on the Apple devices. I apologize. The other element of I would say is look at your browser, because that's really your portal to the internet, right? And how you consume information. Always making sure that you have an HTTPS connection. That just tells you that connection is secure. These are not necessarily more about the bad actor trying to get into your devices. It's just the data that's traversing your connection. Like, for example, your bank, checking on your medical records, anything like that. that creates that session as a secure thing. I would like to say, and it's a deep hole to go down, you can, even a home network now is very much like a small business. It has many layers of things that you can do to protection. I would invite, to look at something like Quad 9. Quad 9 is a DNS security filter, and it's free. So we don't think about DNS in the concept, and I'm sorry, DNS is domain name service. It's basically how you take an address on the internet and turn it into www.url.com. There are security layers that you can layer in. So good opportunity, if that sounds interesting to you, to kind of Google it and look into that and see what it can do for your particular home network, so you can layer in some of that security and that encryption also.
What is meant by hardware outage? How could that possibly be an issue? If you have a power outage all of a sudden, how might that affect your IoT devices?
When I hear that, I'm really thinking of disruption of service, so to speak. So if you're using, for example, you're not at home and you're using some sort of remote camera system to monitor your house, bear in mind that you're dependent on your local house's power and its consistency and health. You can augment that by putting in small battery backup devices, so that in the event that you have a disruption, you can maintain those services. Just understanding that now that's talking about your home power, your home networking equipment, the router, switches, things like that, and then the device itself. The other part of it is it may be reduced functionality. So let's say you're using some sort of smart refrigerator or something like that. If you have an outage on that, you're now not able to actually utilize all the capabilities of that device.
It looks like we have several questions that have come in from the audience in the Q&A. So I'll let the panelists volunteer as they wish to answer some of these questions. One question: how do I know if my devices are vulnerable?
I guess one of the easiest ways to do that is just checking on your devices, check on the manufacturer or the vendor site, and just look at the software updates. That's probably the easiest way to do it. The patch notes will list, what type of updates or what it's actually doing for your device. And a lot of times you'll notice that it'll say, repairing or fixing a vulnerability that's known by them.
Yeah, I thought that was a great question, because we do this in the business space all the time, but I've never really thought about it from the home perspective. So I did what naturally comes to me. I Googled it. And there's a reputable vendor out there called Bitdefender. I haven't used it, so disclaimer, but they actually have a tool that you can download onto a Windows device that will scan your home network and identify vulnerabilities. So that's certainly something that I'm going to take away from this now that that question was posed. But that may be, always, if you have a question like that, throw it in Google and see what you get back in response. Because again, with such a heightened sensitivity to cybersecurity and IT security, there's a lot of tools and knowledge out there that can be tapped into.
Another question from the audience mentioned something called Smart Lock. And the question is Smart Lock a good idea?
I think Smart Lock is actually like an actual lock for your household, which is it's just a wireless device. So as with anything else, there's a potential for account breaching or data breaching. And with that being in mind, just whenever you're investing in these types of devices, just be aware of that. There's a very big possibility that if I can do this, from anywhere, cyber criminal would be able to do the same thing if they were to access my account, and would just make it much easier to just get into your home.
Right. So we do have to balance convenience with security.
Exactly.
I would say when you deploy stuff like that, it's important to recognize the other ways that particular tool can be monitored. So for example, if you put a smart lock on your house, but you didn't change the default password on your router, you've effectively given the keys to the front door to somebody, because they can get on your network and now probably manage that device. So it's understanding the relationship between devices also. The phone would be the same thing. If you're using an app to unlock your front door, you would certainly want to put higher levels of security on your phone so that somebody couldn't pick it up and go to your house.
So we have another question from the audience that says, what about physical security for IoT devices?
From a physical security perspective, it's really about access to the actual device. To me, that sounds more like a camera thing. So if you're using cameras to monitor your driveway, your front door, whatever that is, just be it mine, like a Nest front door thing. Clearly, the easiest thing somebody could do would be to put their hand over that device, which would deny you the ability to see who's at the door. So if, it may be positioning a camera that's offset and high, or thinking about it in that context. I think that's what Mr. Boyd's asking there. But if that's really what it is, I would say understanding what the device is, what role it's going to serve, and then trying to mitigate any access to it by either putting it higher in a remote location or behind some security barrier.
And that also brings to mind something as simple as being aware of where your things are, like not setting down your cell phone in a restaurant or something. Your cell phone, your tablet, your laptop, you need to be aware of where those things are at all times, because again, typical physical theft can still be used to steal those devices and try to get into them that way.
No, I think Steven's exactly right. Like with little things, keeping it in mind. If you're mounting a camera, just put it out of reach. Require a ladder for someone to take it down. Just make it as difficult as possible as far as physical access goes. If you have a computer and you're living in a dormitory or you're at Barton College or something, all these computers, they have actually a spot on them where you can actually lock and secure your device. So if you don't, if multiple people have access to your dormitory, it just makes it that more difficult to take or steal.
Yeah, I think it's to keep in mind, if somebody's really determined, it's going to be, eventually they're going to get there. And so you want to set up, make sure that you're deterring them. You want to be that, you don't want to be that slow person that's easy to catch. You want to make things, a little bit harder to get to, so that, again, having these things, if somebody sees them, they're going to be like, oh, I'm not going up to that house because it looks like, they've got monitors up. But if somebody's really determined to get in there, there's a good chance that they're going to. But so the idea is trying to just set up those systems such that you're deterring people, and you're not the low fruit that's easy for somebody to come take your stuff. Whether it's the stuff that's being monitored or the actual IoT devices.
Another question is, a lot of people are concerned about webcams being hacked, allowing someone to see webcams unknowingly. Is this something, is this a common thing or something that we should really be concerned about?
I'm adverse to security risk by trade. So I would say, yes, it is something you should be concerned about. The trick is, you want to use these technologies to your benefit, but you don't want to give them out to anyone else. So there's a certain amount of control involved. I can tell you firsthand, I've got two older style cameras, and I had done some work on one, and I actually left it in a state where UPnP, which is that plug and play protocol, was left enabled. And within about a day, now I'm on a local ISP network. Within about a day, I started seeing traffic that was coming in off the network specifically to that device, and they were attempting to hack it. So people don't think about, I'm on a consumer level internet in a ISP. I'm using it for streaming television, watching YouTube, whatever the case may be. Don't think it's just activity that's targeted toward businesses. There's lots of nefarious actors that are out there actively scanning all networks looking for, they're not targeting you, they're looking for opportunities, right? So they're trying to find things that are accidentally left open, whether it's intentional or not, or things like that. So it's always something you want to be aware of. That really is the overwhelming or the overguiding principle we're trying to say here is there's a security element to having technology in our life, and the technology is awesome. We have a good time with it. It serves us well. On the other side of it, we have to be cognizant of the fact that we have ownership for maintaining it, right? So yes, I would say do be aware of it. Do be concerned about it, because what you don't want is somebody peeking in on your house when you don't want them to.
Another question from the audience is, do you recommend setting up automatic updates or manual updating for most IoT devices?
I don't think there's anything wrong with setting up the automatic device, especially if it's going to help you keep your device updated, the latest software patches or whatnot. There's absolutely no harm in doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the risk mitigated by allowing it to upgrade automatically is much worse, or much better, excuse me, than the risk of not doing it.
Yeah, I have all my stuff set on automatic that I can't even my Xboxes, have the automatic update set for them. Not just the games, but the Xbox itself.
What are maybe some settings on the devices themselves, or maybe features of some IoT devices that we would want to turn off? Or at least while we're using it, some things that we might want to disable.
I mean, you could have, say you have a garage door opener that's Wi-Fi accessible. And not only that, it gives you the ability to link your Alexa account, just so you could tell Alexa to open the garage. That is a very convenient feature, but let's say something happened with your Amazon account or your Alexa account, and now that person may have the ability to just go through and open your garage. So they are at risk to not turn off some features that you may deem unnecessary or that make you feel uneasy. There's nothing wrong with turning those off.
Yeah, and I would add, if you're looking in the features and you're not sure what they are, don't just turn them off because you don't know what they are, because you might be turning off something important. So, but if you're not sure, that's again where you want to, do your research and find out. And it's not like it's going to take you an hour. I've had things that I just, oh, what is that? And you just use the Google machine and you get your response, right away, and you're like, oh yeah, I want that on, or oh gosh, no, I don't think I need that right now. So yeah, so don't just arbitrarily turn things off because you don't know what they are.
And I think it all boils down to knowing exactly what the different features and settings are and what they do, and so that you know what to enable and disable. Another question is, what about companies that share user data? How can you be protected from that?
So this is really, this is something, a problem everybody's trying to solve, right? So we first have to recognize it's not the company's data, it's ours. And so companies only get access to it because we provide it to them. So one step is, and it was touched on in the presentation, is making sure you understand what data you're giving away. Don't assume just first name, last name, and email address is an innocuous amount of data. There's a lot of information that can be gathered from that. And especially now that look at current events. Okay, so you're going to have contact tracing. There's a lot of initiatives out there that are using contact tracing that are dependent on Bluetooth. That's going to create a relationship between your device and you and your medical records and other people around you. Great technology for tracking that, but just be aware of what is involved with that and how information is being shared. So there's no easy answer for that, because in order to get services from companies, we have to give them some amount of our user data. The trick is just really to understand what it is and then understand how they are going to use it. A good reputable organization should have a disclosure statement that says we will or will not use your data for these things. And if it doesn't feel comfortable to you, don't let them use it.
Yeah, and maybe being aware of what laws and stuff are being discussed and passed, and contacting your representatives and say, hey, I think that's a good idea, or that's not. I mean, going back to our first question, what was it just last year? California passed a law that took effect January 1st, 2020, where IoT devices could no longer be sent out with just weak passwords or the same password. That they actually had to be something that was a little bit harder, or at the very least that when a consumer plugged it in to start it up, they were forced to change their password. I think that's right. I think I'm right that happened. So but being an advocate for those sort of things to protect and be aware, and again contacting your representatives about that.
One question is, if we have older phones that are no longer being updated, are they useful for anything? For example, such as playing games or browsing the internet without signing in. Does that only become a security issue if we're using it to shop and entering passwords? And can hackers go through vulnerable phones, assuming these older phones, to access other devices?
It's not, it's not an absolute answer. It really depends, right? How the phone is being used, the age of it, devices will age out, like as we mentioned earlier, because of improvements in security and operating systems. And so both would be in play here. So for example, if we had an older Android device that was running an older version of that particular operating system, there are probably going to be some inherently less secure functions in that. It then becomes a prospect of, is the phone being used with the same identity as your other device? What permissions does that identity grant that device to? So you have to think about it in that context. So sure, you could use an older phone like as a standalone GPS or other tools, or possibly a gaming device. You could create a separate identity for it so that you isolate it from your working ID or digital identity. So it just depends, but those are some of the things I would think about if I was taking an older phone and I say I want to use this for something. Okay, that's great. How can I do that without commingling it with my other stuff? Because I recognize at the start of the conversation it's older and less secure.
What about all of the remote learning that's going on right now? Panelists, is there one thing that jumps out in your mind about what's the most important thing security-wise that we should be concerned about with all of the remote learning?
I guess just being aware of your surroundings or your background more so. You don't want to give any personal information, that might be depicted behind you, such as, I don't know, maybe you're looking outside your window and you have, your address numbers visible or anything of that nature.
Kevin and Stephen, any thoughts?
Well, I would say just, if you're out and about and not in your home, to be, particularly careful, or maybe, if somebody's really trying to, piggyback off somebody else's, because, you just don't have access. Now I know, and I'd like to, give a shout out to, Greenlight for, going around and setting up more wireless around the city for people who maybe don't have, the access. But, just being careful about that. If you do have to, go outside the home and you're having to use public, Wi-Fi, to really be careful about, what you're doing when you're out there.
The only thing I would add to this, and we kind of touched on it earlier, the VPN tool. If you're using public Wi-Fi, that's really a great model where you'd want to use VPN as virtual private network. And what it does is it allows you to use somebody else's network with a secure connection in it to whatever it is you're getting. And there are consumer services out there that provide that for you. So certainly being on public Wi-Fi, you wouldn't want to do banking transactions and things like that. So just be cognizant of, hey, I'm using a publicly available resource. That's great for just looking online at Facebook or something like that. If you're going to use, if you're going to do banking or anything that has some sensitivity to the data, that would be a great opportunity to just disconnect from the public Wi-Fi, go back on your primary cell carrier, do what you got to do, or go to a safe and secure network like your home network. But yeah, I think it's just being cognizant of where you're at and what you're doing.
One question is, how do we add WP3 to our router, or maybe WPA3 to our router?
That's something you can do simply by logging into the router. If you didn't do it during your initial setup, just go to your system settings, it should be under a security tab. It's different for each manufacturer, each brand. But it is something that you can do. And now if you're going from WPA to like WPA2 or WPA3, you may end up in a situation where you might have to change your password or make it a little more enhanced or complex in order to enable that.
Going a little further with that, going back to the home router for a moment, some sources say to not enable the guest network on your home Wi-Fi. Can any of you tell us about that?
I actually use a different model. So depending on your skill set and getting in the router and what it can do, we have our home default network, right? So we have one for devices. We have a separate network that we have users on, and then I do turn on guest network, so when friends and family come over, that's the one that I can give them, hey, just get on it. It's right here. By the way, it's still password protected, so I'm still controlling it, but it's something I can give out without having to worry about anything that they bring with them commingling with the rest of my network. It's just a security thing that I do. And it makes it easy for your friends and family to come over too, because everybody's so dependent on Wi-Fi now. The first thing you do when you get over to a friend's house is, hey, what's your network name and how do I get to it, right? So you're making it easy for that. You're giving them what they're looking for. And at the same time, you're still protecting yourself.
Another question is, could you repeat the site that you mentioned about the tool that could scan our network for vulnerabilities?
So again, I literally was Googling this while we were having this conversation. It's this particular tool is called Bitdefender Home Scanner.
Okay.
The only reason I looked for that is, you know, in the business space, there's lots of tools that do vulnerability scanning, and I've not tested this, but it certainly looks interesting because it brings the same type of technology into the home. And in the business, what this does is it has definitions not dissimilar from like antivirus or anti-malware, and it will look at your network and go, oh, I see this device has this enabled, or this device is, you know, has some sort of known compromise. It may not be the perfect solution, but you want to make this easy for you, because the easier that it is to do these things, the more likely you are to do it. You know, updating all your devices is cumbersome and time consuming. Like we talked about earlier, allowing them to self-update makes a lot of good sense because it'll happen automatically. This would just be another thing if you were curious about what your home network looked like and how risky or secure it might be to play with.
Well, and I know Fred mentioned earlier about you know, the green light router and having the app then that you can use to actually monitor your network. And so, you know, in preparing for this today, I did that. I hadn't done it in a while, and it was actually a new app out, and I got on and I popped on. I was like, oh, well, I've got 17 devices. And I was like, well, hey, wait a minute, what are these two? You know, and so I was like, and so it took me a while to think about it, because when I had done it in the past, I had actually gone through and put names on my devices so I could easily look at them and see, but there were a couple of them that were showing up as Android and some numbers. But then when I did, and I don't want to get overly technical, I was able to double check them because I looked at the MAC address, because, and that's, you know, you'll get that through, you know, these apps will at least give you that. If they can't, sometimes they can identify the things, but sometimes they can't. You know, like it was able to identify my Xboxes automatically, which I'm guessing that's because it was based on the MAC address, but it wasn't able to do this. So you can go into your settings on those devices and just probably, you know, drill down in a little bit and find out, because each of them will be individual. And then in the app, you can give that a name. So next time when you get on, you know, and you check that, because you do, you know, if you've got 17 devices or whatever, and they're on and off, it'll vary throughout the day, you know, to easily be able to see that is helpful. Now, that being said, with when you do give things names like that, or you do your wireless, you know, the SSID, my understanding, you want to be careful about identifiable things. So you don't like want to use your address, you know, or, you know, your names, you know, your last name or that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that that those are, you know, something that's meaningful to you, but anybody else looks at them, they wouldn't be meaningful to them. Now, and other things that I said that, you know, I was curious about, and I would actually ask this question to the other two panelists, is broadcasting your SSID. You know, I do at my house because we're on and off, and sometimes things cut down and it's just hard to put all that in. But I was wondering what your thoughts are on that, because I see some, you know, a lot of things say don't broadcast that ID. And that's, when I say SSID, that's the name of your wireless network.
I typically suggest, if you have a lot of neighbors, or maybe you live in an apartment complex, that maybe you want to avoid doing that just to help with, you know, any type of breaches. However, you know, I'm in a house, I don't have many neighbors, one on each side. I don't feel like, you know, it's, you know, a big issue if I broadcast mine. I don't even think that it probably reaches out to them.
Yeah, I would say if you can, obscure your SSID also. And certainly I think Kevin hit on a great point, is don't name, you know, if you live at 123 Smith Street, don't name your SSID 123 Smith Street. I mean, there's a lot of information about out there based on, you know, look at Google Street View. So, you know, an opportunistic criminal could drive down the street, easily see Wi-Fi connectivity and then correlate that to addresses and homes and start to gather lots of information about you without ever having set foot on your property. You know, we use these devices because we want to add value to our life and gain benefit from them. Just be aware, with all this information out there, you have to control it in the same way. So just kind of think of it in that context sometimes.
Well, panelists, I think we'll wrap it up now. Do you all have any closing remarks, or?
I guess just take into consideration, take the time, go ahead and do your two-step form authentication, your complex passwords. Keep in mind, don't use all the same username and passwords across the board, and then limit what personal information would be in your passwords.
Yeah, we've talked about some great topics here. The last thing I'll just plug, there's a website out there and I'll drop it into the chat here called Stay Safe Online. So we mentioned briefly that this is October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So this is a great time to take inventory of your home and look at some best practices out there on what you can do to add some additional layers of security to your life, but allow you to use all of these technologies to the highest degree possible. So, and I wanted to thank everybody for allowing me to attend today. It's been enjoyable. Thank you.
Kevin, do you have any last tips?
Well, I think sometimes, given all this information that we've put out there today, it can feel a little overwhelming, and you back yourself and say, well, I can't do all that, so I'm not going to do any of it. So start off with the real simple things, the usernames, the passwords, that sort of thing, and work your way into it. And if nothing else, really nail down that router. I think that's, like I said, that's the front door, and really focus on that. And, don't be afraid to, reach out to others, your friends, neighbors, someone you can trust that maybe is a little bit more knowledgeable to help walk you through that.
I would close by saying to never think that it won't happen to you, and just be aware of it at all times, and use common sense, and put those things into place, and to remember that if it can happen, it will. Wilson Community College offers information technology certificates and degrees for those who are interested in learning more or making a change to a high demand field with lots of opportunity for growth and salary. For more information, you can visit our college website at www.wilsoncc.edu and click on Academics at the top. Your attendance today means a lot to us. Thank you for helping to make our second annual Cyber Safe in the Gigabit City a big success. We also thank Wilson Community College information technology staff and marketing staff for doing such an excellent job and being wonderful to work with as always. Stay safe in the Internet of Things. This now concludes our webinar.